I never thought the day would come when my own tears would fall heavier than the rain outside. But there I was, sitting in my dimly lit room, folding a piece of paper that could very well serve as my last goodbye. It was my will. My trembling fingers smoothed the creases of the page before tucking it into the bottom of an old wooden box, one that had once held keepsakes from my wedding, symbols of love that seemed so far away now. The box smelled faintly of cedar, and the fabric ribbon tied around it had long lost its color. As I shut it, I pressed my forehead against the lid, breathing in the silence of the room while my body shook with sobs. Outside, the rain poured relentlessly, mixing with the echoes of my grief. "Joe," I whispered toward the motionless figure in the wheelchair beside me. His eyes blinked, and two frail tears slid down his gaunt cheeks, though he said nothing. That was all he could do now, silent acknowledgement of a storm that words could no longer contain. The night crawled into morning, but the sky remained as dark as my heart. The fog clung stubbornly to the narrow streets as an ambulance took me away. I lay on the gurney, staring at the blurred streetlights that flickered past the windows. My chest felt heavy, so heavy I could barely breathe, and in my hand I clutched a small fabric bag. Inside was nothing remarkable, just a change of clothes and an embroidered handkerchief I had carried since the day I married Joe. The fabric was worn thin, but it gave me strength. Today was the day. Today, I was going to give my kidney to Adam, my son. I had prepared for this moment, written my will, steeled my mind, whispered countless prayers. Yet my heart still beat like it was trapped in a nightmare that refused to let me wake. Every bump of the ambulance wheels jarred me deeper into dread. When the siren fell silent and the doors opened, a nurse pushed me down a long hallway. The screech of the gurney wheels against the tiled floor echoed like hammer blows in my skull. Behind me, Rebecca walked with light but determined steps. Her presence was sharp, like the point of a blade pressed gently against my back. "Don't worry, Mom," she said softly, though her words carried the weight of command. "After the surgery, everything will be fine." I turned my head slightly, catching her expression from the corner of my eye. There was something in her look, something triumphant. Her smile was thin, victorious, as if she had already secured some hidden prize. A chill ran through me, not from the hospital's cold air, but from the uncanny sensation that I was walking straight into a plan where I was nothing but a pawn. At the reception, Rebecca's parents were already waiting. Mr. Dalton wore an old but well-pressed suit, while Mrs. Crane had dressed in a dazzling red gown more suited to a grand celebration than a hospital corridor. Their exaggerated friendliness with the doctors made my stomach twist. Mrs. Crane's laugh rang out loudly as she clasped a young physician's hand. "Thank you for your support, Doctor. We'll never forget this favor," she said with a confidence that unsettled me. I clutched my little fabric bag tighter, as if it were the only thing keeping me from unraveling completely. Adam had been moved into a small waiting room, and I was allowed to see him before the surgery. The air in the room was frigid, heavy with the smell of disinfectant. My son's body was frail, his arms bruised and swollen from IVs. His face was pale, his eyes sunken, but when he saw me, he tried to muster a weak smile. "Mom, thank you," he whispered, his voice nearly breaking with exhaustion. I took his hand. His skin was ice cold, and my throat burned with tears. "Adam, I'll do everything I can to make you better," I said, though my voice wavered like a fragile thread. His eyes held a pure trust that made me question myself. Was I doing the right thing, or was I blindly stepping into a sacrifice I didn't fully understand? Before I could gather my thoughts, the door burst open. Brandon came rushing in, his shirt soaked with sweat and his hands smeared with grease from work. His breathing was ragged, and his eyes were red with panic. "Mom, don't do it," he pleaded, clutching my shoulders with urgency. "Please, don't donate your kidney. Something isn't right." I looked into his desperate face, and a storm of emotions raged inside me. I wanted to tell him I had no choice, that I couldn't let Adam die, but my lips refused to form the words. Instead, I pressed my hand gently over his and gave it a weak squeeze before the nurse led me away. Brandon's voice echoed down the hallway, breaking my heart. "Mom, listen to me, please." but I couldn't turn back. If I looked into his eyes again, I knew I'd crumble. The hospital hallway stretched endlessly, every step colder than the last. The smell of bleach was suffocating, and the announcement over the loudspeaker struck like a gavel. Operating room 3. Prepare for kidney transplant. They dressed me in a sterile blue gown, covered my hair with a cap, and tied a mask over my face. When I glanced at my reflection in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. My cheeks were hollow, dark circles shadowed my eyes, and a quiet voice inside me whispered, "What are you doing? Are you sure this is right?" But then Adam's face flashed before me, lying weak in his hospital bed, and I clenched my jaw. I couldn't falter now. As I was wheeled closer to the operating theater, I caught sight of Rebecca and her mother speaking to a man near the glass window. He wore a black jacket and a cap pulled low over his face, the same kind of man Brandon had once warned me about with a photograph. Rebecca discreetly handed him an envelope, and he slid it quickly into his jacket. My stomach lurched. My heart began to pound so hard it rattled against my ribs. What was in that envelope? Why was Rebecca meeting him here now? I wanted to stop, to demand an answer, but the nurse tugged me gently forward. The doors to the operating room swung open, and I was swallowed by the blinding white lights. Dr. Harris stood at the center, his voice steady but grave. "Everything is ready, Mrs. Ward. Please, try to relax." I nodded stiffly, though relaxation was impossible. Electrodes clung coldly to my chest, and the steady beep of the heart monitor echoed like an ominous drumbeat. Through the glass, Rebecca pressed her face against the window. She gestured hurriedly toward the papers in the nurse's hands, signaling for me to sign them. My hand shook violently as I picked up the pen. The ink bled across the paper as I scrawled my name. It felt as though I was signing my own death sentence. As the nurse prepared the syringe with anesthesia, sweat trickled down my back. I closed my eyes, images of my family flashing one after another. Adam pale and weak, Brandon begging me to stop, Mario's innocent face, Joe's silent tears. My chest heaved with fear, then suddenly a crash. The door burst open, every head turned as the hinges screeched. A small figure darted into the room, his sneakers caked with mud, his school uniform rumpled. Mario, my grandson. His little chest rose and fell rapidly, and in his hands, he clutched his old, cracked cell phone like it was the most precious treasure in the world. "Grandma," he cried, his voice trembling but firm enough to pierce the air. "I have to tell everyone why my dad really needs your kidney." The room froze. My heart stopped, and in that single moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The operating room, usually a place of sterile order, erupted into chaos the moment Mario's words cut through the air. Nurses exchanged worried glances, Dr. Harris frowned deeply, and Rebecca shot forward like a lightning strike, her hand grasping Mario's shoulder tightly. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, her voice sharp with panic. "You shouldn't be here, Mario. Go home now." But Mario shook her off with a fierceness I had never seen in his young eyes. His hands trembled, but his chin lifted in defiance. He clutched a battered cell phone higher, as though holding a torch to expose something hidden in the dark. "Grandma has to know the truth," he said, his voice breaking but carrying the weight of conviction. "Everyone has to know." I sat upright on the gurney despite the four tugging at my arm, my breath ragged. "Mario, what truth? Tell me." My voice was hoarse, but the demand in it surprised even me. Rebecca's face twisted in fury, her mask of sweetness torn away. She lunged for the phone, but Mario darted back, stumbling against the wall. His small frame pressed against the glass of the observation window, and with desperate fingers, he unlocked the screen. A video began to play. The tinny sound filled the tense silence. The shaky recording showed a dimly lit room, a hidden camera placed low. In the frame, Adam sat slumped in a chair, his face pale and drenched in sweat. His voice cracked as he whispered, I can't go on lying. I don't want Mom's kidney. It's not right. I don't want her to die for me." Another figure stepped into the frame. It was Rebecca. Her tone was cold, each word deliberate. "You'll say what I tell you to say, Adam. You don't have a choice." Without this surgery, you won't live. And if mom gives you her kidney, everything will finally fall into place. Do you understand me? Adam shook his head weakly. But it's too dangerous for her. Rebecca's voice turned venomous. Stop whining. She'll survive or she won't. Either way, it's the only way this family gets what we need. You want your son to have a future? Then stay quiet. The recording ended abruptly. The silence that followed was unbearable. Every eye in the room turned toward Rebecca. Her face had gone pale, but she quickly masked it with indignation. That's nonsense, she snapped. It's fake, a trick. That video is doctored, anyone can see that. But her words rang hollow. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I could barely breathe as I stared at Mario. Where did you get this? I whispered. Mario's voice cracked, but his courage held. I found Dad's old phone in the garage. He must have hidden the recording before Rebecca could delete it. I didn't understand at first, but then I knew I had to show you, Doctor. Harris raised a hand, signaling for calm, but his eyes betrayed unease. Mrs. Ward, perhaps we should pause this procedure until no. Rebecca's scream cut him off. Her composure shattered, her face twisting into desperation. You don't understand. If she doesn't do this now, Adam will die. We can't wait. We can't. Her voice cracked, but it wasn't grief I heard, it was rage. Panic. The unraveling of a scheme she had so carefully woven. Tears blurred my eyes as I looked at Adam through the glass. His face pressed against the pillow, too weak to even sit up. Had he truly been coerced all this time? My hands shook violently, and the pen I had signed with clattered to the floor. Brandon's words came rushing back to me. Something isn't right. Don't do it. And now Mario had given proof that my sacrifice was not born purely of love, but of manipulation. I can't, I said, my voice barely audible. Not like this. Rebecca's head snapped toward me, her eyes burning with fury. Mother, don't be foolish. If you don't give Adam your kidney, he will die right here today. Is that what you want? I trembled under her glare. What I want is the truth, I said firmly, though my body felt as if it might collapse under the weight of it all. The door burst open again. Brandon stormed in, 2 security guards trailing behind him. His face was flushed with rage, his eyes ablaze. Don't you dare touch her, he roared, pointing a trembling finger at Rebecca. I told you something was wrong. Now everyone sees it. Rebecca backed away, her mask completely gone now. You don't understand, she spat. Without this surgery, Adam won't live. And without Adam, everything I worked for disappears. What are you talking about? Brandon demanded, his voice cracking under the strain. Rebecca hesitated, her lips parting as if she had said too much. But her silence was enough. Everyone in that room felt it, the chilling truth that this was never just about saving Adam's life. My tears streamed uncontrollably, my body convulsing with grief and rage. I clutched Mario's small hand, his tiny fingers gripping mine like a lifeline. His presence anchored me. In that moment, I realized something vital. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't just a body to be sacrificed. I was a mother, a grandmother, a woman whose love could not be twisted into chains. The beeping of the heart monitor grew frantic, mirroring the storm inside me. Doctor. Harris stepped forward, his tone stern. We're halting this operation. This has gone far beyond medical boundaries. Until the truth is sorted, there will be no transplant. Relief flooded me so suddenly that my knees gave way. I collapsed against the gurney, sobbing into my hands. For the first time in weeks, the crushing inevitability loosened its grip. Rebecca's scream of fury echoed down the hall as the guards moved to escort her out. You'll regret this, she shouted, her voice ragged with hatred. All of you. You'll regret it. But her words no longer held power. Brandon rushed to my side, wrapping his arms around me, trembling as much as I was. It's over, Mom, he whispered into my hair. You don't have to do this anymore. I held on to him with every ounce of strength left in me. Mario pressed himself against my other side, his tiny arms encircling my waist, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the faintest glimmer of hope. Still, deep inside me, a chilling question lingered. If Rebecca had been willing to go this far, what else was hidden beneath the surface? I had no idea then that this was only the beginning, that the secrets we had just uncovered were but the first cracks in a wall that was about to come crashing down. The hospital corridors buzzed with tension long after Rebecca had been dragged away, her screams echoing like a banshee's curse. The sterile smell of disinfectant hung in the air, but it couldn't cleanse the stench of betrayal that clung to me. My legs trembled beneath me, but Brandon and Mario each held one of my arms, guiding me gently toward a waiting bench in the hallway. For a long moment, I simply sat there, my chest heaving, the weight of everything pressing down. Adam's life, Rebecca's lies, the transplant that nearly claimed me, it all swirled in my mind like a storm without end. Brandon crouched in front of me, his face etched with exhaustion but burning with determination. "Mom, we can't let this slide. She's dangerous. If she's been forcing Adam, if she's been hiding medicines, who knows what else she's capable of." Mario still clutched a battered phone, holding it close to his chest as if it were a sacred artifact. His little voice broke the silence. "Grandma, Daddy didn't want you to suffer. He tried to stop her. I think he was scared too." Those words pierced my heart deeper than any knife. Adam, my boy, my son, had been trapped all along, too weak to fight the woman who should have loved and protected him. Tears blurred my vision again, but this time, grief mingled with fury. "Doctor." Harris approached cautiously, his glasses sliding down the bridge of his nose. "Mrs. Ward, I've notified the administration. This situation, it's highly irregular. Until we've investigated further, Adam will remain under close watch. No unsupervised visitors." I nodded numbly, though my mind was already racing. Unsupervised visitors. That was good. It meant Rebecca couldn't simply waltz in and poison him again. But would that stop her? The venom in her last words, "You'll regret this," echoed in my ears. Brandon rose abruptly, pacing like a caged lion. "I should go to the police right now. That video, the pill bottles, the photos, it's enough to open a case, Doctor." Harris's frown deepened. "Do that? Yes, but understand, these matters take time. Bureaucracy, evidence. It may not be swift." I looked at Mario, who had curled himself into my side. He had carried this truth, this burden, far heavier than any child should. And he had been the one to break the silence. I stroked his hair, whispering, "You've saved us, my brave boy. You've saved me." His small hand tightened around mine. "I just want Daddy safe, Grandma." His words cut deeper than Rebecca's venom ever could. That night, Brandon drove us home in his old pickup. The headlights carved through the darkness, the hum of the engine filling the silence. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, my thoughts spiraling. Mario leaned against me, finally drifting into sleep, his face softened but still marked by fear. "Mom," Brandon said quietly, his voice almost drowned out by the rumble of the truck, "I don't think Rebecca's finished. People like her, they don't just give up. She's desperate, and desperate people are dangerous." I turned to him, my heart clenching. What more could she do? She's already tried to trick me into giving my kidney, already lied about Adam's treatment. What's left? Brandon's jaw tightened. "That's what scares me. We don't know what her endgame is. But I promise you this, I'll protect you and Mario. She won't get near you again." His words brought me comfort, but fear still gnawed at my insides. For weeks, I had ignored my instincts, telling myself I was imagining things. But now there was no denying it. Rebecca wasn't just manipulative, she was calculating, ruthless, and willing to sacrifice anyone who stood in her way. When we arrived home, I tucked Mario into the small bed in the guest room. He stirred briefly, murmuring something incoherent, then fell back into deep sleep. I watched him for a long time, brushing the hair from his forehead. His innocence had been stolen too soon. Yet his bravery shone brighter than anything I'd ever seen. In the kitchen, Brandon sat at the table, spreading out his blurry photos of Rebecca and the mysterious man in the hospital parking lot. His hands trembled as he pushed them toward me. "Mom, look. This isn't just about Adam's health. She's involved in something bigger. That man, he wasn't just some passerby. He was waiting for her. Look at the way he hides his face, the way he keeps his distance." This was a deal. I studied the images, my stomach twisting. Rebecca handing over a small bag, the man slipping her an envelope. Shadows and secrecy. What could she possibly be trading? I whispered. Brandon's eyes narrowed. Medicine. Data. Something tied to Adam's condition, maybe even to his transplant. Whatever it is, it's worth money. Big money. And she's willing to risk everything for it. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the table. But Adam, he's her husband. How could she gamble with his life like that? Brandon's voice broke. Because she doesn't love him, Mom. Not the way you and I do. To her, Adam is a pawn in a bigger game. The words hit me like a slap. I had always believed love was the anchor of family, the force that bound us through every storm. To think Rebecca saw Adam not as a husband, but as a tool, it made me sick. The clock ticked on the wall, each second hammering into my skull. Midnight came and went, but neither Brandon nor I could sleep. We sat in silence, the weight of dread pressing down. And then, just past 2 in the morning, the phone rang. The shrill sound cut through the night like a blade. I jumped, my heart racing, while Brandon grabbed the receiver. His eyes widened as he listened, his knuckles whitening around the phone. Who is it? I demanded, my voice cracking. He didn't answer right away. He just lowered the receiver slowly, his face pale as chalk. It was the hospital. Someone tried to get into Adam's room. A nurse found the 4 tampered with. If she hadn't walked in, my breath caught. Adam? He's stable, Brandon said quickly, though his voice shook. They stopped it in time. But Mom, it was poison. They tested the 4 bag. Someone tried to kill him. The room spun around me. My knees buckled, and I gripped the table for support. Poison. She's gone beyond manipulation. She wants him dead. Brandon's fist slammed the table. This is it. We're going to the police first thing in the morning. I don't care how long it takes. I'll make them listen. She's not getting away with this. My tears came hot and fast, streaming down my face as I whispered, she won't stop until she destroys us all. Brandon leaned forward, his voice low, trembling with rage. Then we'll stop her first, outside. The night was silent, the moon pale and watchful. But inside our small home, the air was thick with a terrifying truth. Rebecca wasn't finished, not by a long shot. And the battle for Adam's life had only just begun. The morning came heavy with fog, the kind that wrapped around the trees like ghostly fingers. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Adam lying helpless and 4 dripping poison into his veins, Rebecca's face smirking in the shadows. Brandon brewed strong coffee, his movements sharp, restless. We're going to the police now, he said firmly. No more waiting. Mario shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. Grandma, is Daddy okay? His small voice trembled, and I knew he'd overheard more than I wanted him to. I forced a smile, crouching to his level. Your daddy is safe, sweetheart. The doctors are taking good care of him, but my heart knew safety was a fragile word. T. The police station, the smell of paper, sweat, and stale coffee filled the air. A young officer with tired eyes led us into a small interview room. Brandon spread out the photos, the recordings, the pill bottles, and Mario's trembling testimony. The officer listened, nodding, jotting down notes. But when Brandon pressed him for action, his response was measured. We'll investigate thoroughly, he said. But this involves multiple parties, doctors, administrators, perhaps even pharmaceutical companies. It's complicated. If we move too fast without airtight evidence, the case could collapse. Brandon's fist hit the table. Complicated? My brother almost died last night. What more do you need? I placed a hand on his arm, whispering, Patience, son. We can't lose our heads now. Mario, clutching the cracked phone, piped up timidly. But the videos, don't they prove it? The officer's gaze softened as he looked at Mario. They help, son. They help a lot. But the law moves slowly. We'll assign protection to Adam's room in the meantime. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Back at the hospital, Adam looked weaker than ever, his cheeks hollow, his voice faint. When I walked in, he grabbed my hand with surprising strength. Mom, they told me someone tampered with the 4. Was it her? His eyes red-rimmed, desperate, searched mine. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to shield him from the truth, but lying had nearly cost us everything already. Yes, Adam, it was Rebecca. He closed his eyes, a single tear escaping. I was blind. I let her into my life, into your lives, and she nearly destroyed us all. His voice cracked. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I stroked his hair, fighting my own tears. Son, love makes fools of us all. What matters is that you're alive, and we're here to protect you now. Brandon entered with a tray of food. His jaw clenched. We'll get her locked away. I swear it. But Mario was unusually quiet, standing by the window, staring at the rain streaking down the glass. I went to him, kneeling. What is it? My love. He bit his lip. What if Mommy comes back? What if she tries to hurt you again, Grandma? I pulled him close, feeling his tiny body shake. Then she'll have to go through me first. And through your Uncle Brandon. You're safe, Mario. But even as I said it, dread pulled in my stomach. Because Rebecca was still out there, and desperate people don't fade quietly. That night, I dreamed of shadows slithering through hospital hallways, whispering voices plotting behind doors. When I awoke, Brandon was gone. Panic flared until I found a note on the table, went to follow a lead. Don't wait up. My chest tightened. He was chasing Rebecca. I knew it. Hours crawled by. Mario and I sat together on the couch, the television flickering muted news reports about the hospital drug scandal that was beginning to leak into the press. I stroked Mario's hair, trying to hide my worry. Near midnight, the phone rang again. I snatched it up, my heart hammering. Mom. Brandon's voice came, hushed, strained. I found her. Where are you? I whispered, fear prickling my skin. The old warehouse by the river. She's here with that man from the photos. I think they're moving something, boxes, crates. Medicine, maybe. His breathing was ragged. I'm going to get closer, get proof. No. My voice broke. Brandon, don't you dare. Call the police. Let them handle it. Don't you go in there alone. But before he could answer, a loud crash echoed through the receiver, followed by muffled shouts. My blood ran cold. Brandon? I screamed. The line went dead. Mario clutched my sleeve, eyes wide with terror. Grandma, what happened? I swallowed hard, forcing calm into my voice. Your uncle, he's in trouble. We need to get help. I grabbed my coat, my mind spinning. The police station was miles away, and by the time they moved, it could be too late. Brandon was out there alone, facing Rebecca and whoever her accomplice was. Mario grabbed my hand fiercely. I'm coming with you. I hesitated, torn between fear for his safety and the knowledge that I couldn't leave him alone at home. Finally, I nodded. Stay close to me. Don't let go. We hurried into the night, the rain pelting down in sheets, the streets nearly deserted. My heart pounded as I drove toward the river, headlights cutting through the mist. Every shadow seemed alive, every turn a threat. When we arrived, the warehouse loomed like a beast in the fog. Its broken windows glowed faintly with light inside. I parked a distance away, pulling Mario close. Stay here, I whispered, but he shook his head, his small jaw set with stubborn courage. No, I won't let you go alone. I had no time to argue. I crept toward the side of the warehouse, Mario clutching my coat. Through a crack in the boarded-up wall, I peered inside. The sight made my blood run cold. Rebecca stood in the center, her hair wild, her eyes blazing. Beside her was the same man from Brandon's photos, tall, broad-shouldered, face hidden beneath a cap. Around them were crates stacked high, marked with pharmaceutical logos, and on the ground, restrained with zipped eyes, was Brandon. His lip was bleeding, his shirt torn, but his eyes met mine through the crack. I slapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a cry. Rebecca's voice cut through the warehouse, sharp as glass. You should have stayed out of this, Brandon. You and your meddling mother don't understand what's at stake. Do you know how much money this shipment is worth? Do you know the power it could bring? The man beside her grunted, adjusting the strap of a rifle slung across his chest. My stomach lurched. This wasn't just about medicine. This was a criminal network. Something far darker than I'd feared. Brandon spat blood onto the floor. You're insane, Rebecca. You'd sell poison to strangers while your own husband rots in a hospital bed? Her laugh was bitter, hollow. Adam was never strong enough. But this is bigger than him. Bigger than all of you. And if a few lives are ruined along the way, so be it. I clutched Mario to me, my body trembling with rage and fear. Rebecca wasn't just a manipulator, she was a monster. And now, she had my son tied to the floor of a warehouse, at the mercy of men with guns. I pulled back from the crack, my heart hammering. I had to act. I had to save him. But how could one broken old woman stand against Rebecca and her man? I turned to Mario, whose eyes were wide but steady. We have to think, I whispered. If we go in, we'll be caught too. We need a plan. He nodded quickly, his small hand gripping mine. Grandma, we can do it. We always do. And in that moment, staring into the fearless eyes of my grandson, I knew one thing for certain. Rebecca had underestimated us. The night was about to turn. The rain hammered down harder, drumming against the rusted metal roof of the warehouse. My breath came shallow, every inhale sharp with dread. Brandon was inside, tied like an animal, while Rebecca and her accomplice plotted above him. My son's life dangled by a thread, and I felt my own heart clawing at my ribs. Mario clutched my sleeve, his eyes locked on mine. Grandma, we can't just wait. They'll hurt Uncle Brandon. I know, I whispered, swallowing the lump in my throat. But if we rush in, we'll be caught too. We have to outsmart them. I scanned the yard, searching desperately for anything, a weapon, a tool, something we could use. My gaze fell on a stack of wooden pallets leaning against the fence. Beside them lay a rusted crowbar, abandoned and half buried in mud. I grabbed it, the cold metal biting into my palm, and slid it into my coat. Mario tugged on my arm. Look, Grandma. He pointed toward the far end of the warehouse. A faint glow seeped from a side door, barely cracked open, swaying with the wind. Hope flickered inside me. That's how we'll get in, I murmured. We crept through puddles, the rain masking our steps. Every sound inside seemed amplified, the echo of Rebecca's voice, the shuffle of boots, Brandon's muffled groan. As we neared the door, I crouched to Mario's level. You must stay behind me, no matter what. If things get dangerous, you run. Do you hear me? He shook his head fiercely. No, I won't leave you. I cupped his cheek, feeling his warmth against my trembling fingers. You're braver than anyone I know, but I need you safe. Please, Mario, for me. He swallowed hard and nodded reluctantly. Together, we slipped through the door. The warehouse reeked of damp wood and chemicals. Shadows danced across the concrete floor from a single flickering bulb overhead. Stacks of crates formed narrow corridors, and I used them as cover, inching forward until I caught sight of Brandon again. He was slumped against a support beam, wrists bound tight, blood staining his temple. Rebecca loomed over him, pacing like a predator. You could have joined me, she hissed, her face contorted with rage. But she chose loyalty to that old woman. She'll drag you down with her. Brandon lifted his head weakly. Better her than you, the man with the rifle growled. Enough. We need to move the product now. If the police catch wind, we're finished. Rebecca spun on him. We will not be finished. I've worked too hard for this. No one will stop me, not Brandon. Not his mother. Not anyone. Her words pierced me like shards of ice. I pressed Mario against the crates, my heartbeat deafening in my ears. We needed a diversion, something to break the stranglehold she had, and then I saw it, a stack of metal drums labeled flammable. A reckless, dangerous idea sparked inside me. I leaned close to Mario. Listen carefully. When I say now, you run outside and find help. Shout, scream, whatever it takes to draw attention. I'll handle the rest. His lips trembled. But what if no buts? Trust me. I kissed his forehead quickly, then rose from my crouch. Rebecca's laughter echoed, sharp and cruel, as she taunted Brandon. My hands shook as I gripped the crowbar and struck one of the metal drums with all my strength. The clang reverberated through the warehouse like a thunderclap. Sparks flew as the crowbar scraped metal. Rebecca's head snapped up. What was that? The man swung his rifle toward the noise, moving cautiously. Now, Mario, I hissed, My grandson darted out the side door, his footsteps swallowed by the storm. Relief warred with terror inside me. Rebecca advanced, her eyes narrowing as she spotted me emerging from behind the crates. Her face twisted into a snarl. "You!" she spat. "I should have known you'd come crawling. Let him go, Rebecca," I said, my voice low but steady. "This ends tonight." She laughed coldly. "You think you can stop me? You're nothing but a frail old woman." Her accomplice raised a rifle. My stomach lurched, but before he could fire, Brandon kicked his leg out with surprising force, toppling him. The gun clattered to the floor, sliding across the concrete toward me. I dove for it, the cold steel heavy in my trembling hands. "Don't you dare!" Rebecca shrieked, lunging toward me. I leveled the weapon, my heart pounding so violently I feared it would burst. "Stay back," I warned. My voice quivered, but the determination behind it was iron. For a moment, time froze. Rebecca's eyes burned with fury, her chest heaving. The man groaned, trying to rise, but Brandon kicked him down again. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Mario had done it. Hope surged through me like fire. Rebecca's face twisted. "No, no, you won't ruin me." She darted forward, faster than I expected. My finger trembled on the trigger. At the last second, I jerked the gun upward and fired into the ceiling. The deafening blast shook the warehouse, sending plaster raining down. Rebecca froze, her wild eyes darting toward the door as flashing red and blue lights filled the windows. Police shouts echoed outside. Brandon groaned, his voice hoarse. "Mom, don't let her escape." The side door burst open. Officers swarmed in, weapons raised, voices commanding. "Drop it! Hands where we can see them!" Rebecca screamed, thrashing, but two officers tackled her to the ground, pinning her arms. The rifleman was dragged away in handcuffs, cursing under his breath. I dropped the weapon, my body collapsing beside Brandon. His face was pale, but his eyes were alive with gratitude. "Mom," he whispered, you saved me." I took his face in my hands, tears streaming freely now. "No, son, we saved each other." Mario burst back inside, escorted by a kind-faced officer. He ran to me, burying his face in my chest. "I thought I lost you," he sobbed. I held him tightly, rocking us both as relief washed over me in waves. "We're safe now. It's over." But even as I said it, a small voice deep inside whispered, "Was it truly over?" Rebecca screamed as they hauled her away, her voice shrill with venom. "You think this changes anything? You've ruined everything. I'll never forgive you." I held Brandon's hand tightly, refusing to look at her. For me, forgiveness no longer mattered. What mattered was survival, family, and the truth that had finally clawed its way into the light. The warehouse doors closed behind the officers, muting her cries. The storm outside eased, rain softening into a drizzle. For the first time in months, I felt the tight knot in my chest begin to loosen. We were alive, and those scars would remain. We had faced the monster together and survived. But little did I know, the scars of betrayal don't vanish overnight, they dig deep, lingering in the quiet moments long after the storm has passed. The police station smelled of bleach and paper, the kind of scent that lingered in your hair long after you left. We sat in a cramped interview room, Brandon slumped in a chair with his wrists freshly bandaged, Mario curled against me, exhausted but unwilling to close his eyes. My own body ached from the adrenaline crash, yet my mind refused to rest. Rebecca was in custody, her accomplice too. But safety still felt fragile, like glass that could shatter with one wrong word. Detective Harlan, a middle-aged man with thinning hair and weary eyes, entered with a file tucked under his arm. He gave us a measured look before sitting across the table. "You did the right thing bringing this to us," he said, his voice low. "But I need you to understand this isn't over." "Not by a long shot." Brandon leaned forward, his jaw set. "What do you mean? You've got her." "She can't hurt us anymore," Harlan sighed, flipping the file open. Inside were photographs, crates of medicine, stacks of paperwork, names highlighted in yellow. Rebecca was just one cog in a much larger machine. Smuggling, falsified prescriptions, laundering through hospital budgets. There are powerful people tied up in this, and they'll do anything to protect themselves. The words hung heavy in the air. My stomach clenched as if someone had twisted a knife inside me. So Adam's suffering. All of it. It wasn't just her? Harlan shook his head grimly. She played her part, but there are others. Doctors, administrators, suppliers. And if she talks, which she probably will, they'll want to silence her before she can drag them down. Mario stirred against me, his small voice barely audible. Will they come after us too? I pressed my lips to his hair, fighting to keep my voice steady. No one will hurt you again, sweetheart. I promise. But deep inside, doubt not, Brandon slammed his fist on the table, startling Mario. So what? We just sit here and wait for the rest of them to come knocking. That's my brother lying in a hospital bed while these people profit off his pain. Harlan's gaze hardened. No, we build a case. We gather enough evidence to dismantle the whole operation. But you need to be careful. You've already drawn too much attention. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Finally, Harlan rose. We'll arrange protective detail for Adam, for all of you. But understand, this fight isn't finished. After he left, Brandon buried his face in his hands, shoulders shaking with frustration. I reached across the table, squeezing his arm. We've come this far together. We can't falter now. He lifted his head, eyes rimmed red. I don't know how much more I can take, Mom. Every time I think it's over, it gets worse. Mario, in his quiet innocence, looked up. But we're still here, Uncle Brandon. That means we're winning. The simplicity of his words struck me like a bomb. Children see truths adults bury under fear. We were escorted back to the hospital under the watch of 2 officers. The halls, once oppressive, now felt tense with anticipation. News of Rebecca's arrest had spread, whispers slithering from room to room. Some nurses avoided my eyes. Others offered fleeting smiles of sympathy. When we entered Adam's room, he was awake, though weak. His skin looked ashen under the fluorescent glow. The officer stationed at his door gave a polite nod before stepping aside. Adam's gaze flicked between us. Anxiety etched into his face. What happened? Brandon dropped heavily into a chair. She's in custody. Rebecca, she won't touch you again. For a moment, Adam's expression was blank. Then his lips quivered. I thought I loved her. How could I not see what she was? My chest ached for him. I brushed his hair from his forehead gently. Because love blinds us, son. It makes us trust when we shouldn't. That's not weakness, it's human. He squeezed my hand, tears pooling in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything. I leaned closer, my own tears spilling. You're my son. Nothing changes that. We sat together in fragile silence until a nurse entered to check his vitals. She adjusted the 4, her face neutral, but something about her quick, nervous glance unsettled me. When she left, Brandon muttered, I don't trust half the people in this building anymore. Neither do I admitted. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by Adam's bed, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest, listening to the steady beep of the monitor. Every creak in the hall made my pulse spike. At some point near dawn, the officer guarding the door leaned in. Ma'am, you should rest. We've got him covered. I shook my head. A mother doesn't rest until her children are safe. He gave a faint smile, but behind it I saw pity. He knew as well as I did safety was still a distant shore. The following day brought reporters. The scandal had erupted into headlines. Hospital smuggling ring exposed, nurse and accomplice arrested. Cameras flashed outside the hospital, microphones shoved at anyone willing to speak. I kept Mario close, shielding him from the chaos. Brandon handled most of the questions, his voice firm but measured. My brother is a victim in this. We just want justice. Inside, though, I saw the storm brewing in him. He wanted more than justice, he wanted revenge. That evening, as the halls quieted, he cornered me near the vending machines. Mom, I've been thinking, if the police can't move fast enough, maybe we should gather evidence ourselves. Go after the ones behind this. Fear clawed at my throat. Brandon, no. We nearly lost you once already. I can't, he cut me off. His voice hard. Do you want to watch Adam waste away while we sit here helpless? Do you? I faltered, torn between his fire and my fear. I want my family safe. That's all I want. He softened slightly, placing a hand on my shoulder. Then trust me to fight for it. That night, as Mario slept curled against me on a cot in Adam's room, I stared into the darkness, haunted by Rebecca's screams in the warehouse. Even caged, she still held power. And if Brandon was right, others would come. But I also remembered Mario's words, simple and pure. We're still here. That means we're winning. Perhaps survival was its own victory. Perhaps it was the only way forward. Still, as I drifted into uneasy sleep, one thought echoed louder than all the rest. This war wasn't finished. It was only beginning. The days after Rebecca's arrest blurred into one another, each filled with a strange mixture of relief and dread. On the surface, we were safer. The hospital seemed more attentive, the staff suddenly polite, as if eager to erase the shadow of scandal. Yet beneath it all, I felt the hum of danger, a vibration in the walls, reminding me the battle wasn't finished. I stayed by Adam's side, sleeping in the uncomfortable hospital cot. Brandon came and went, restless, always moving, always suspicious. Mario clung to me more than ever, his innocence slowly eroded by the storm he had been forced into. One evening, as the sun dipped beyond the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and fiery reds, Dr. Evans called me aside. His voice was quiet but urgent. "Mrs. Harris," he began, his brow furrowed. "We've run more tests. Adam's kidney function is deteriorating faster than expected. We can't delay much longer. If we wait, the transplant may be too late." The words hit me like a hammer. I had expected them, feared them, but hearing them spoken aloud stole the air from my lungs. "So, it has to be me, doesn't it?" He nodded gravely. "You're the best match. We'll need your final consent." I leaned against the wall for support, the cool paint pressing into my back. The thought of surgery, of giving up a part of myself, frightened me less than the idea of losing Adam. Still, doubts crept in. If Rebecca had been poisoning him, what if damage was worse than anyone knew? What if my sacrifice wasn't enough? When I returned to Adam's room, Brandon was already there, pacing like a caged animal. "What did he say?" he demanded. I hesitated, then answered, "It's time. We can't delay." Brandon's face twisted with conflict. He ran a hand through his hair, tugging as though to keep from shouting. "And you're just going to go through with it? After everything?" "Mom, what if Brandon—" I cut him off softly. "This isn't about Rebecca anymore. This is about saving your brother." Mario's small voice piped up from the corner where he sat sketching in a notebook. "Grandma's strong. She can do it." His faith, so simple and unwavering, steadied me. The following morning, preparations began. They drew my blood, measured my pressure, checked my heart. Nurses fluttered around with clipboards, all efficiency and cold hands. Through it all, Adam tried to smile, but his eyes betrayed him fear, guilt, helplessness. "Mom," he whispered when we were alone, "what if something happens to you? What if I lose you because of me?" I cupped his face, feeling the sharpness of his bones beneath his skin. "Then you'll live for both of us. But I won't let that happen. Do you hear me? I won't." He nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. That night, Brandon pulled me aside in the hallway, his expression fierce. "If you go through with this, promise me something." "What is it?" "Promise me you'll let me handle whatever comes next. If these people try to interfere, if they come back for us, I'll take care of it. No more holding me back." I searched his face, torn between pride and fear. "Brandon, I don't want you dragged deeper into this. It's too late," he said quietly. "I'm already in it. So promise me." I swallowed hard and finally nodded. "I promise." The night before the operation, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window of Adam's room, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. My body trembled, not from fear of the surgery, but from the weight of everything we'd uncovered: the lies, the betrayal, the shadows stretching farther than I could see. At one point, Mario stirred in his sleep. He whispered something, half dreaming. "Don't let them win, Grandma." The simplicity of his words seared into me. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about defiance. about refusing to be broken. The morning arrived heavy with silence. Nurses wheeled me through long corridors that smelled of antiseptic and polished floors. Brandon walked beside me until the last possible second, his hand gripping mine like he was afraid to let go. "You come back. You hear me?" His voice cracked, raw with emotion. "I will," I whispered, squeezing his hand one final time. In the operating room, the lights above me were blinding, the air cold. Masked faces loomed, their voices muffled. I thought of Adam, of Brandon, of Mario's brave little heart. And then, everything faded to black. When I opened my eyes again, it was to the rhythmic beeping of machines and the sterile white of recovery. My body ached in ways I didn't know possible, a deep hollowness in my side, but I was alive. Brandon was at my bedside, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. When he saw me stir, his eyes shone with relief. "Mom, you made it." I licked my dry lips, my voice barely a whisper. "Adam, he's in post-op too. The transplant went well, they said." They said his body's responding. Tears slipped down my cheeks, mingling with the taste of salt on my lips. Relief, so sharp it hurt, flooded through me. But in the corner, I noticed an officer still stationed by the door, tense, watchful. Even in this moment of fragile victory, danger loomed. Later, when I drifted in and out of sleep, I overheard Brandon murmuring to the officer, "If they try anything, if they come back, I don't care what it takes. I won't let them near her or Adam." The officer gave a grave nod. "Stay alert. This isn't finished." Those words haunted me, echoing in the hollow of my chest. Because even though Adam had been given another chance at life, I knew our fight with the shadows surrounding us was far from over, and deep inside, a chilling thought surfaced. What if Rebecca wasn't the only one willing to sacrifice family for power? The storm wasn't behind us, it was circling, waiting for its next strike. Recovery was slower than I expected. Each breath tugged at the stitches along my side, a dull ache that pulsed with every movement. Nurses checked my vitals constantly, and Brandon hovered like a hawk, refusing to leave my side for more than a few minutes. But what weighed on me more than the pain was Adam. He was alive, his new kidney working. The doctors said, but his spirit seemed broken. When I finally had the strength to shuffle into his room, leaning heavily on Brandon's arm, I saw him staring at the ceiling with empty eyes. "Adam," I whispered, taking his hand. He blinked, turned to me slowly, and tried to smile. "Mom, you did it. You saved me." His voice cracked on the last word, and guilt seeped into his expression like ink into paper. "But what did it cost you?" I shook my head, ignoring the throbbing in my body. "Don't you dare blame yourself. This is my choice. I'd do it again 100 times. Tears slipped down his cheeks, silent and steady. "I let her hurt you. I let Rebecca poison me. And I didn't see it. I trusted her more than I trusted you." His words pierced deeper than any scalpel. I squeezed his hand, forcing my voice to remain steady. "You trusted because you loved. That isn't weakness, Adam. That's humanity. What she did, that's on her, not on you." For the first time, he broke down. His shoulders shook, and I pulled him into my arms as carefully as I could. In that sterile room, beneath the weight of monitors and for drips, we cried like mother and son to survivors clinging to each other in the wreckage. But the world outside wasn't waiting for us to heal. News of Rebecca's arrest spread quickly. Newspapers screamed headlines about the drug trafficking scandal, doctors under investigation, and illegal trials disguised as medical treatments. Some praised Mario as a child hero. Others speculated about the mystery woman who had almost been forced into surgery under false pretenses. That woman was me. One afternoon, Dr. Evans entered Adam's room, his face tight with fatigue. He shut the door behind him before speaking. "There's something you both need to know." The authorities found documents in Rebecca's possession. Files, data logs, all signed under her and her parents' names. My chest tightened. "What kind of documents?" He hesitated. "They detailed medical results, your son's among others. There were coded communications about overseas transfers. But there's more. She wasn't working alone. There's an entire network, and some of its threads run deep into this hospital." The room felt colder. Adam's hand twitched in mine, weak but desperate. You mean they could still come after us? Dr. Evans met my eyes. It's possible, which is why security has been doubled. But I wanted you to hear it from me, not from rumors. After he left, silence swallowed us. Brandon, leaning in the corner, clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. I knew it. He spat. She wasn't the mastermind. She was just a pawn for something bigger. My stomach knotted. The thought of Rebecca as merely one link in a chain of corruption made the air in the room feel heavier. How many more hands had touched Adam's suffering? How far did their reach extend? That night, I couldn't sleep. Mario had curled up on a chair beside my bed, his small chest rising and falling in rhythm. Brandon sat by the window, the glow of a cigarette illuminating his hardened features. You shouldn't smoke here, I murmured. He snorted softly, tapping ash into a paper cup. Don't worry. It's not lit. Just needed something to hold. The silence stretched. Finally, he said, I keep thinking, what if Rebecca isn't the last? What if someone else walks through those doors tomorrow? I looked at him, at the boy who had grown too fast into a man shaped by loss and anger. Then we'll face them, together. He turned to me, his eyes glistening despite his hardened tone. You almost died, Mom. I can't let that happen again. I won't. His voice trembled, and I realized the weight he carried wasn't just about protecting me, it was about carrying the shame of not being able to stop Rebecca sooner. I reached out, my fingers brushing his rough knuckles. Brandon, you saved me. You and Mario both. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here. He swallowed hard, looking away, but his grip tightened around my hand. The following day, Mario returned from school with a crumpled paper in his bag. It was a drawing. Him, Adam, Brandon, and me, all holding hands under a bright yellow sun. He pressed it into my lap shyly. Do you like it? He asked, tears welled in my eyes. It's beautiful, sweetheart. He smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in weeks. For a fleeting moment, the darkness seemed far away, but that illusion shattered later that evening. A nurse entered Adam's room to adjust his four. Something about her struck me as odd, the stiffness in her shoulders, the way her eyes darted to the security guard before settling on the equipment. My instinct screamed, wait, I said sharply. What's your name? She froze, her hand hovering over the four bag. I'm new here. Brandon sprang from his chair, grabbing her wrist before she could move. The guard rushed forward. The nurse's bag spilled open in the struggle, and out tumbled a small vial unlabeled, filled with a murky liquid. The room erupted in chaos. Security restrained her, and the vial was confiscated. Adam stared in shock, his chest heaving. Brandon's face burned with fury, his grip unrelenting. Who sent you? He demanded, his voice sharp as a blade. The woman trembled, eyes darting, lips sealed. I sat frozen, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. It was happening again. The shadow that trailed us had stepped into the room. As they dragged her away, the realization struck like lightning. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. And though I was weak, stitched and aching, a fire lit inside me. They had underestimated me before. They thought I was just a fragile old woman, someone easy to silence. But now I had survived betrayal, surgery, and nearly my own death. I wasn't the same woman who had wept in silence months ago. This time, I would fight back. And I swore, as I looked at Adam and Brandon and little Mario, I would tear down every shadow until we were free. The hospital no longer felt like a sanctuary of healing. To me, its polished floors and sterile walls hid secrets, and every unfamiliar face could be another trap. After the incident with the false nurse, security tripled. Officers patrolled the hallways, cameras were checked more often, and each visitor had to sign in with identification. Yet the unease clung to me like damp clothes I couldn't shake off. Adam was recovering steadily, though his energy was fragile. He tried to mask his weakness with light jokes, but I could see it in his eyes, the weight of betrayal, the burden of guilt, the uncertainty about what kind of life awaited him now. Brandon hovered close, always on guard, his every movement tense like a soldier at war. And Mario, sweet Mario, carried his bravery with quiet dignity, though I often caught him staring at shadows as if expecting them to come alive. One evening, Dr. Evans entered with a folder in his hands. His face was grim. He closed the blinds, checked the hallway, and then sat down beside me. "Mrs. Harris," he began, his voice low, "the investigation is bigger than anyone imagined. The authorities traced Rebecca's files to a network spread across multiple hospitals. Your son's case was one of many patients unknowingly turned into experiments." My blood froze. So Adam wasn't the only one? He shook his head. "No, there are others. And some of them didn't survive." I covered my mouth to stop the sob that rose. Adam closed his eyes, his jaw clenched tight. Brandon swore under his breath and slammed his fist against the wall, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "They're still out there," Brandon growled. "And they'll keep trying until they're stopped." Dr. Evans nodded. "That's why the police will want statements from all of you. But I must warn you, the people involved are dangerous. They won't hesitate to silence anyone standing in their way." The words hung heavy in the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. The rhythm of the heart monitor in Adam's room beat like a drum, each tone a reminder of how close I'd come to losing him. I stared at the ceiling, memories flooding back: Rebecca's cold smile, the envelope passed to the stranger, the recording Mario had played with trembling hands. I thought I had seen the worst of it, but the truth was wider, darker, and far more suffocating. As dawn approached, Brandon came to sit beside me. His shoulders slumped, exhaustion etched into his face, yet his eyes remained alert. "Mom," he whispered, "if something happens to me, don't you dare." I cut in sharply. "Don't you dare say that. I need you to hear it," he insisted, his voice low but firm. "If something happens, you protect Adam and Mario. Promise me." I reached for his hand, gripping it with what little strength I had. "Nothing will happen to you. Do you hear me? Nothing. You're all I have left to stand tall." His eyes softened for a moment, and he gave a faint nod. But the fire in him didn't dim. 2 days later, the police arrived for statements. Mario sat nervously, his small hands clutching mine while officers asked gentle questions about the recordings he had shown. Adam spoke weakly, his voice fragile, recounting the strange pills Rebecca had insisted he take. Brandon, however, gave his testimony like a hammer striking nails, angry, unflinching, every word drenched in the fury of someone betrayed too many times. When it was my turn, I told them everything. About the will I had written, about the ambulance ride with Rebecca's triumphant gaze, about the cold gown, the blinding lights, the moment Mario burst in to save me. As I spoke, tears blurred my vision, but my voice never broke. Because this was no longer just my story, it was evidence. A weapon against the shadows that had stalked my family. After the officers left, silence blanketed the room. Adam turned to me, his eyes moist. "Mom, I don't know how to live with this. Knowing I almost lost you because of me, because of the woman I let into my life." I stroked his hand gently, brushing away his tears. "You live by remembering that love blinded you, but it wasn't a crime to trust. What Rebecca did, what her family did, belongs to them, not you." Brandon stood near the door, arms crossed. "Don't waste your guilt, Adam. Use it. Stay alive." "That's all Mom ever wanted." Mario nodded solemnly, adding, "We just have to stay together. That's how we win." His words carried more wisdom than his years, and I realized he was right. Togetherness was our shield now, but fate wasn't done testing us. Later that week, while Adam slept, Brandon received a call. His face darkened as he listened, and when he hung up, his fists shook. "What is it?" I asked, my chest tightening. "That nurse," he muttered. "The one with the vial. She disappeared from custody." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean, disappeared?" "Gone. Vanished. No records, no transfer, nothing. Like she never existed." I felt the room spin. If she had vanished, it meant someone powerful had pulled strings. Someone still watching us. I sat down heavily, clutching the edge of the bed. "We're not safe here." Brandon's jaw clenched. "Then we fight fire with fire." The determination in his eyes both comforted and frightened me. Because I knew what he meant. He wasn't just going to wait for the law to protect us. He was ready to take matters into his own hands. That night, as rain lashed against the hospital windows, I lay awake, staring at Mario sleeping curled in a chair. The storm outside mirrored the one inside me. How far would this go? How many more battles lay ahead? And at what cost? Yet as I looked at my son's frail body resting in the hospital bed, and at Brandon's silhouette standing guard by the window, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would not bow. I had already given a piece of myself to save Adam. If the shadows thought they could steal the rest of me, they were wrong. I was ready to fight, no matter how dark the path became. The storm had passed by morning, leaving behind streets slick with rain and air heavy with the scent of wet earth. Yet the storm inside us raged on, louder and more violent than anything outside the hospital windows. Brandon hadn't slept at all. I could see it in his bloodshot eyes and restless pacing. Adam stirred weakly, half-formed words falling from his lips in dreams, while Mario clung to his toy truck as if it could shield him from everything that had happened. I thought the darkest moments were behind us. But fate wasn't finished twisting its cruel knife. By midday, Dr. Evans returned with more news. He looked weary, his once neat hair falling into his eyes. The investigation has confirmed something troubling, he said, setting a thick folder on the table. Rebecca's arrest was a victory, but her disappearance from custody is proof that the network she worked for runs deeper than we thought. We're dealing with people who have power, influence, and money, and they won't let go of what they've built. His words felt like the ground giving way beneath me. I glanced at Adam, at his thin frame and pale skin. He had fought so hard to survive. Would we forever be hunted because of what they had done to him? We need to leave, Brandon said suddenly, his voice edged with iron. If they know where we are, we're sitting ducks. We get Adam discharged, and we vanish. Somewhere they'll never find us. Mario perked up at the word vanish, his eyes wide. Like hide and seek? Brandon knelt and ruffled his hair gently. Yeah, kiddo. The most important game of hide and seek we'll ever play. I wanted to agree, but fear gnawed at me. Running meant abandoning the fight. Staying meant risking everything. My body still bore the scars of the surgery, the ache constant, a reminder of how close I had come to dying. Yet my spirit, battered but not broken, refused to surrender. That night, after Adam drifted into a deep sleep, I stepped into the hallway. Brandon followed, his steps heavy. What if running isn't the answer? I whispered. He frowned. You can't be serious. Do you want to wait here until they send someone else to finish the job? I don't, I admitted, gripping the railing along the wall for support. But running won't erase them. It won't stop them from doing this to others. Adam wasn't the only victim. How many more families are being torn apart while we hide? Brandon's jaw tightened, and for a moment, silence stretched between us. Then he exhaled, slow and heavy. So what, you want to take them on yourself? Not alone, I said firmly. With the truth. With every scrap of evidence we have. If they want to silence me, then I'll make my voice so loud the world can't ignore it. He shook his head, muttering, You're insane. But beneath the harsh words, I saw something else flicker in his eyes: respect. The days that followed blurred into a rhythm of healing and planning. Adam grew stronger, able to sit up and smile without wincing. Mario brought color back into the room with his drawings: families holding hands, houses under rainbows, sons with big grins. Brandon contacted journalists through friends he trusted, whispering about the scandal that was bigger than any one hospital. And I began to write. I wrote everything down: the betrayal, the surgery, the evidence, the fear. Page after page, I poured out the truth, my hands trembling but relentless. It wasn't just a testimony. It was my weapon. When the story broke in the press, the world shifted. Newspapers printed headlines in bold black letters, networks debated on screens, and ordinary people flooded forums with outrage. Rebecca's name became a symbol of corruption, and whispers of the greater network spread like wildfire. But fire attracts shadows. One evening, as Brandon and I walked the hospital corridors, we noticed a man loitering near Adam's room. He wore a visitor's badge, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the surroundings with too much intent. When Brandon called out, the man disappeared down the stairwell without a word. That night, My unease grew into certainty. They were still watching us. Instead of breaking me, the realization hardened my resolve. I sat by Adam's bed, stroking his hair as he slept, and whispered, "They will not win. They will not take you, or Mario, or Brandon. I swear it." The weeks dragged on. Security never let down its guard. Investigators worked endlessly, and slowly, a strange calm settled over us, a fragile peace, held together by vigilance and hope. Then came the day Adam was finally discharged. The doctors wheeled him out under the gray morning sky, his face pale but glowing with relief. Mario ran ahead, shouting about pancakes for breakfast, and Brendan pushed a wheelchair with a cautious eye on every corner. When I stepped out of those hospital doors, breathing in the fresh air, it felt like crossing a threshold. Behind us lay betrayal, pain, and the cold shadow of death. Ahead of us was uncertainty, but also freedom, a fragile, precious freedom we had bled for. In the quiet of that moment, I realized something profound. The battle wasn't just about Rebecca or her network. It was about us, about refusing to be broken, refusing to let fear dictate our lives. As we drove away, the city rolling past the windows, I reached for Adam's hand and Mario's little one too. Brandon glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes tired but alive, and I thought, this is what survival looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the courage to walk forward despite it. The shadows might return one day. They might come for us again. But now they would find not a weak, grieving woman, but a mother forged in fire, a family bound by scars and unyielding love. If they wanted a war, I was ready, because I had already chosen my weapon, truth. And truth, once unleashed, was impossible to silence.